Hello, here we are again with Mookie Tenembaum. We are exploring through these videos his philosophy, his disillusionism, and trying to understand the misalgic theory that explains human behavior on account of aversion to suffering. And as many of you already know, week after week, we are trying to apply these concepts to situations in everyday life, sometimes to current affairs. And today we are going to try and analyze from a disillusionist point of view, from a misalgic point of view, that part of the human population that we usually call psychopaths, that we usually call sociopaths. And we are going to try and see what this means from a disillusionist, from a misalgic point of view.
Well, first of all, if everybody who was being called psychopath or sociopath was a psychopath or a sociopath, and they form a party, probably they will win the election. I mean, everybody is being called from one side to the other. I'm sorry. It's called everybody we know. It's called has been called the sociopath, psychopath, anybody. But the truth is that it is a much narrower group of people. And it is very important to understand who are they and what are they and how they think, because we know some of them. The percentage in the population by most experts is between 1 and 2% of the population. That means if you know 100 people, chances are that you know one at least. And it's interesting because I say one, there is not a group. It's not like, a corporation. The corporation of the evil corporation. Psychopaths are probably the reason we use the word evil. We use evil because somebody is totally evil. Things are totally evil, and I'm sure that has been the inspiration for devils and hells and what have you. I mean, I have no doubt that they are behind, and we have since they are among us. This 1 or 2% of people, there are very good chances that we have been victims or will be victims of a psychopath soon enough. So what are psychopaths? So psychopaths are not, it's not a group of characteristics. It is a group of lack of characteristics. It is really, it's a catalog of an absence, okay? Not of a presence. And these are the three things. The first one is they have no moral conscience. That means they don't feel guilt ever on anything. I have said simply, but what? I mean, if they do something really bad, bad is in your brain, not in theirs. That doesn't exist. It's if there is no rules, if there are no ethics, then of course there are no limits. This is number one. Number two, they have no sentiments. They don't love anybody, nor they hate anybody. If somebody is hating, if you are being hated by somebody, he's not a psychopath. Sounds, and I'm sure many say he's a psychopath. He does that out of spite, out of hate. He's not a psychopath. Psychopaths have no sentiment at all, nothing. Nor they feel they are lacking them. They know that people are saying, I love you and I hate, and they probably think, talking about how they think, that these people are playing an act. Those of us who say, listen, I feel guilty about this and that, or I love that person, they think that this is a way of talking. Like, you sometimes say to your child, I will kill you if you touch that. Yes, of course, you're not going to kill him. So they think it's part of that kind of exaggerated adjectives, which I have to say that in the world we live today, it's quite easy. Plenty of them. So they feel that this is about that kind of inflation from the beginning. And the third one, they don't feel empathy. Now I have to be, again, as a disillusionist, I explain empathy. There is two different kinds of empathy. The animal empathy, yes, the one that if somebody hits somebody else's in their groin, you go up. Yes, that is animal empathy.
You only had to say it, and I felt something.
You already felt something. So this is empathy. Then there is, of course, the empathy for the suffering of others. We're talking about that now. Now it's a more robust kind of empathy, or at least a more 3D, yes, kind of empathy. And here you have either two kinds of suffering. Suffering number one could be guilt, or love, being left by a woman, whatever it is happens. That will be, and that, of course, they will feel zero empathy. They will feel then there is an empathy of, you will say, and here where it comes to, it's even surprising, even if somebody gets hit physically, just hit yourself with a finger against the door, they feel nothing. Only if it's, as I say, as a surprise, yes, like I say, like something that happens but a pain, like, oh, my leg, somebody without a leg, nothing will happen to them. Now, this is what a psychopath is. And finally, let me give you a number that is going to be very important. 25% of the people in prison are apparently, studies have shown consistently, are supposed to be psychopaths. Up to 25%, maybe it's 22, maybe it's 27, but to have the number. So the question, who are the other 75?
Intriguing. Let me recap a bit. You made me think of this image, I think by Leonardo da Vinci. It's a very classical image in Renaissance art that says, painting, it's by via di porre. In painting, you have to add layers in order to get the image you are looking for. Whereas sculpture goes by via de levare. It's, you have to subtract, you have to take away stuff in order to get the image you are looking for. You have described psychopath, I would say, by via de levare. It's just, you take any one of us and you just do away with the moral consciousness, with the empathy, and with the feelings. And that's the image I'm starting to get of a psychopath. But what I'm thinking is, from disillusionist, especially from a misalgic point of view, this surely paints an entirely different picture. It provides for a very different landscape in the psychopath way. Because if you don't feel guilt, and that's a very strong source of suffering for us, if you don't feel feelings, sentiments, and if you don't have empathy, the sources of algias, the sources of pains you have to avoid, it's very different from those of the rest of the people. So this should shape behavior in a very different way. What is it that psychopaths suffer from? What is it that they run away from?
Well, again, it's a very good question. Again, the path we walk in, of course, the imaginary path, the way we live, the way we sleepwalk, the way we wake up from sleepwalk, is the result of an endless line of aversions of sufferings, or running away from a certain kind of suffering, or even the result of solving several sufferings. So this is how our way looks. So their way will be very different, because they will have, for example, no limits on how to behave with certain people, family members, brothers, sisters, anything, friends, nothing. That does mean nothing. But the interesting thing is, they already experienced that, something that we have to understand. They never experienced love. They never experienced hate. They never experienced guilt. So what happens if somebody else will know about it? It will be a disaster. They will be shunned immediately, of course. I mean, I don't want to hear about you. Yes, you are terrible people. So they either go for it and end up in prison, that 25%, yeah, they go for it, or they act like they mimic the behavior. Or they will say, I feel guilt, and they will say, I feel love, and they will say, I feel empathy. Here and there, they will probably exaggerate, because they have no idea what it feels like. So to make it sure that the other people understand, they will a little bit exaggerate. That's the way, probably, the telltale when you start seeing a psychopath. Doesn't mean sometimes some people exaggerate because they exaggerate. They are not psychopaths. But what I'm trying to say is that certain things begin to add up, but you have to look into them to have to find them. And these people, you know, there is a myth, and here is very important. There is a myth that psychopaths are geniuses, are people who are sitting in the dark cellar somewhere under the Arctic,
Plotting.
Plotting, yes, they plot. So they all the time plot. No, they sleepwalk as much as you do. In fact, they are not more intelligent than the rest, but they do have one advantage. I'm talking intellectually speaking. The advantage goes like this. Me and you and people who are watching this video, all of us, when we want, when we think about something that is repugnant, we stop thinking about it. Repugnant could be something like vomit, yes, but morally repugnant, emotionally repugnant. Okay, so when you feel this kind of feeling, you stop thinking. We have learned, again, like a misalgic way, not to think certain things that will lead us to suffer. So we don't think in those areas. But in those areas, there are of course things that are very bad, that are bad for us, that are repugnant, that are immoral, and things that may be useful. And the psychopaths, they can go into this area, find it this way, and suddenly they look like they had better ideas, but no, they just have more data, more access to data. This is what happens to them. No, this is the myth about, and the proof of that is that 25% of the people in prison are psychopaths. Yes, if they are so bright, why are they in prison? And they are in prison because two reasons: they don't understand the way the other one works, and that creates a lot of friction, physical violence, a lot of problems because they don't understand, not because they hate you, not because in fact they don't hate, not because they're angry, because they just don't understand. And please don't think that they think they are a misunderstood group of people. No, they are misunderstanding, but they are not misunderstood. No, it's important to think that I'm not here, but how they think is you understand, it's very difficult for them to think like we do. And
if I don't have feelings, it would be very feelings for you to hurt. I can see how it would be almost impossible for me to anticipate how could I hurt your feelings. It's really a feat of imagination if they can actually see that boundary. But you keep mentioning the 25% of prison population that are sociopath and psychopath. I want to ask you about the other 75%.
Okay,
what are they doing there?
The mystery. Let me begin with a short story. In the Second World War, there were two leaders confronting each other. That was Stalin versus Hitler. To understand, Stalin was a psychopath. How do I know he's a psychopath? His son fell in the hands of the Germans. The Germans asked for a general instead of his son, and he says, "You can kill him. I don't care." He was a psychopath. He didn't care even about his own son. That's a psychopath. Okay. On the other hand, there was Hitler. He was an idealist. He had absolutely, he felt guilt. Absolutely, he has a moral conscience. Of course, terrible moral conscience, but he did have. Of course, he had empathy and he had sentiment. We've seen it in many letters and the stories, personal stories. That makes the idealism more dangerous than psychopathy. Because if Hitler would have succeeded, the rest of the system will continue after him. If Stalin succeeded or not, he's gone. He's a psychopath. He's gone. That's it. It's over. Next people, then they will kill each other. And in fact, that's what happens afterwards, after when he died. When he died. But the important thing is that a psychopath he's not a member. I said it's not a syndicate. Yes, he's not being. He sells royalties. He gets royalties for being. These people are alone. They. Do you understand? They don't love each other, and they don't love psychopaths either. Two psychopaths are not going to make it better than a psychopath and a non-psychopath.
So, putting it bluntly, what you're saying is 25% of criminals are Stalin, the other 75% are Hitlers, so to speak.
So to speak. Ones are psychopaths, the other are idealists. Idealists, they are criminals. No, they have their own social system. They have their own guilt. They have their own their own morals. They have their own sentiments, and they have their own empathy. They feel empathy towards each other. No, they don't feel empathy at you that you being robbed. But you don't feel empathy when you eat a steak about a cow that was killed for your steak. We're asking people things, and the reason we are persecuting them is because they don't have the same moral standards as we do. That is the only reason. But psychopaths, absolutely not. They are not psychopaths at all.
Very interesting. We are almost done in terms of time. We are not done with the subject. Of course, we could keep analyzing this for a long time, but we are almost out of time for our usual standards. So just if you have anything else to add.
Yes, what I have to add is, listen, psychopaths are very dangerous. If you happen to know one, and you can, probably misogynically, it's going to be a good idea to run away from them. But again, every misogynic situation, is whatever. People make their own decisions. But yes, this is not good people to have around. No.
I'll keep that in mind. Thank you very much. See you next time.
If you enjoyed the video, please like it, comment and subscribe.